Hello!
Hi, everyone!
Welcome to another laid-back look at an old game here on Gamasutra.
Is that the name of the series, Alex?
Yeah.
Laid back looks at old games?
I try to never name series because once you give it a name, you can't kill it. I don't know. I am, of course, Gamasutra editor Alex Warrow, joined today down the lower left by Gamasutra contributing editor Brian Francis. Hi, Brian. How you doing?
I feel so good to be on camera. Woo!
Yeah?
I can dance. I'm dancing. Ow. Anyway, yeah, hi, I'm doing good. Alex, what's this word I'm seeing on screen here? Morrowind?
This game is very important to me.
Yeah.
And to the game industry at large. A lot of people just don't know about it. But we're going to show them. We're going to tell them.
Yeah, I guess. Do you want to introduce what we do here, why we exist, and why we stream old games some days?
Because we think they're worth seeing. Because we don't want to forget our history, but we don't have the time, money, or space to open a museum. So instead, we just have a Twitch channel.
Sweet.
This is Bethesda Game Studios' 2002 hit, such as it is, The Elder Scrolls III Morrowind. And I thought this was sort of a fun thing to jump back into for a bit, given that next week is I believe its 15th anniversary, or its birthday. Happy birthday.
Happy birthday.
Yeah, and also, Morrowind is sort of back in the news a little bit because ZeniMax is introducing an expansion to the Elder Scrolls Online that is themed around Morrowind. So it's sort of calling back to this classic game. But we're not going to talk necessarily about that new game. We're going to go ahead and launch this old game and sort of talk about what interesting things it does with design. So let's just go ahead and pop right in here.
Before we go forward, I should just remind people that if you like the Elder Scrolls Online, you should check out our chat with the game's creative director that we had a while back. It's somewhere in the archive, it's archived under Twitch videos. So if you want to see us talk about MMO design, that was great, Chad, that I think you should reference.
Yeah.
Okay. Sweet. I'm just going to give some shout out to the chat real quick. We have Mission Informer, Rhetoric, and Jimmersion Games hanging out that I can see. Just as a reminder, if you have any thoughts you want to share about Morrowind or want any insight or anecdotes, feel free to say them in the chat and we'll get to them as we're streaming. So Alex, as you get started, I'm going to share my knowledge of Morrowind, because this is interesting because there's kind of an age gap here between you and me. We're not that far apart in age, but Morrowind is a strange slice of the difference between us. So,
okay, Brian, before you do that,
yeah,
you want to go on a journey with me?
What's the journey? Character creator?
This is the journey to Morrowind. Strap in.
Strapping in.
This is not that important, actually. This is just a little opening cinematic. I will probably skip through it, but I don't know. It's sort of interesting to look at.
This is how we used to be eased into the magic circle, if you will.
Yeah, I actually don't remember what the opening to Oblivion or Skyrim is.
I remember Oblivion because that's what I watched. Anyway, I should actually talk about that because so the age difference between Alex and I is that when it's only a few years, but Alex has talked a lot about Morrowind. But when Morrowind came out, I was 12 years old and barely understood PC gaming at all. We had a GameCube in my house. We had a PC game. We had a PC, but there wasn't like a personal PC for me and my brother by that point. I mean, maybe there was by that point, but it definitely wasn't like we were buying new computer games constantly at that point. It was more like we had kind of what our friends had, and none of our friends were into Morrowind. The first time I heard about Morrowind, I was traveling to Germany, and some childhood friends of ours asked me, they learned that we love games and computer games, and with desperate passion, one of them asked, "Do you play Morrowind? You know what Morrowind is, right? You like role-playing games?" And I was like, no, and I just thought it was this strange. I either thought it was a German game that I didn't know about, or it was some big adult thing, because obviously I was still a kid basically. And a few years later, I was playing Skyrim, and Oblivion had already come and gone as a thing. I didn't play. Me missing Oblivion was more a matter of interest than age. But to you, Alex, Morrowind was a big deal. Why was it a big deal?
Well, because you're a young millennial and I'm an old millennial. Yeah, I don't know. This game, oops. This game to me was like the first big open world role-playing game.
Mm-hmm.
Like it was the first Bethesda game for me, and I think for a lot of people. You know, as we noted.
Mm-hmm.
We have to move the microphone away because I need both hands for this incredibly immersive role-playing experience. This is where they want you. The first big 3D Bethesda game.
Yeah. It was different. It was preceded by was Daggerfall the first or second Elder Scrolls game?
That is the second mainline one. So there are. Yeah. So they did Arena. Okay. Well, first we have to immerse ourselves here. What are we gonna be?
What do you usually go?
So I usually go full magic. So I'm all about that Breton.
Yeah. I say do it.
What about you? What are you a fan of?
I'm always the problem is I always play like I played Oblivion, so I played Skyrim, so I really wanted to be a Viking, so I just went like Viking warrior. So you can't do that here. Like, I can't help you. Just be whatever you want to be. Like, you're the pilot.
Okay.
It's your stream.
Be a cat person.
So this was their first push into 3D open world, and you mentioned earlier like this is a chance to look at open world games before many of the things that define open world games today were even physically possible. Because, like you said, this game doesn't have a physics engine, right?
I don't remember exactly how physics work in this. This is the first. This is the first big use of Gamebryo by Bethesda, which, you know, as we noted on the website today, that engine kind of became infamous in Fallout 3 and Oblivion for how heavily modified it was, and you know how the seams started to show. But here it was new.
I'm sure you'll fit right in. Follow me up to
so
the
we're going to find out together exactly how physics work in this.
The chat is recognizing was kind of angling for an Argonian, but what'd you go with?
Oh gosh, I'm sorry. I think I went with the cat person.
Yeah, I mean that's fair. Kahit has wares. All right, so you were showing me this earlier, and I'm really excited for this next stream we're about to talk about. Okay. Mitch is weighing in that they also had played a lot of Oblivion back in 08. Because Mitch and I are probably, I think if I'm recognizing you, Mitch, because you were mentioning, sorry, I can't say your last name very well, but I think we met at GDC, and you were giving a presentation there on Thief the Dark Project. So I think I remember meeting you. This is wild. Like, hold on, can you just back up and walk around the room for a second, or do you have to do this thing with this guy?
I mean, I have to define.
You have to define who you are. Okay, so we walked into this room earlier, and I looked over, and I did a double take, because I had never seen anything like this before in an Elder Scrolls game. Like, you have these 3 tapestries on the wall, which are these, like, this is, like, concept art put in the game, and, like, it's so funny how it doesn't look like it fits with anything else, because it's, like, a low-quality render of a high-quality art that they're trying to use to help you get in the mood of, like, help pick who you are. And I've just never seen this ever anywhere else, and it's almost like it is both blatant in that it is very game designy, and yet it still feels like ingenious for the time, which I can appreciate. Because instead of trying to make you sit in the like they're just trying to get you in the mood, and there are so many new ways we have to get players in the mood these days that this one feels, you know, this one feels it both feels quaint, and it's like, oh my god, I can't believe like that worked.
Yeah, I was surprised you were so taken aback by these, but I guess, you know, they are sort of striking. I actually didn't notice them. I played this game for hours and hours and too many hours when I was a kid, and I remember this room perfectly, in the next room, and I remember this whole village and the next village after it. I don't remember these tapestries at all, so maybe I just noticed them for the first time.
Yeah, everyone else is saying they want you to steal everything in this room.
Oops. I forgot that was the button that did that. Alright,
You stole something?
Yeah.
You got caught?
Yeah. I was trying to remember if you can just pick things. Nope. Nope. You can't.
It's not like Elder Scrolls or it's not like a Skyrim where you can just pick things up, move them to a dark corner, and then steal them, right?
Yeah. Continue through to the next building.
Yeah, I don't remember. I don't think so. Again, we're gonna have to find out together.
Yeah. Alright, so the plot of this game, I was looking this up. You're playing someone, you've been ordered here by the Emperor to fulfill a prophecy. To kind of a save the world prophecy. But this was like, just like Oblivion, Skyrim later on, this was meant to be like, just like those games, this is sort of the, there's a main quest anchoring you through, but then it's a side quest and open world palooza, right?
Yeah. Oh, there.
So you could totally. I remember reading there was a great feature by Chris. Was it Chris Livingston? He's a PC gamer now, where it was like he played like he did his best to play like an NPC in these games. So he would load up Morrowind, Oblivion, and then I think he did one for Skyrim where he was just trying to play like a guy named Gary who wasn't very adventurous or combative and just wanted to, sort of live a humble life in a fantasy world.
Oh, I forgot there's an auto walk button. That's pretty good. Alright, I need to look up who the camera control is. Yeah.
Let's just say hi to Raglan real quick, who just dropped into the chat.
Hello, welcome back to 2002.
Yeah.
Oh, there we go.
Oh my god.
That's a look.
That walk animation!
What do you mean? That's...
Schwiggity schwiggity!
It's very immersive.
They went all in on trying to make sure the lizard people walked like lizards.
That's right. I need to figure out how to crouch. There we go. Okay.
Yeah.
Can't open that. I'm sure someone in chat knows exactly where I can get the lockpick that will let me...
Rusty Broomhammer wants to make sure you read the books.
Right, of course. This was huge when I was a kid. This was significant. I mean, I don't think any of this certainly was... It's not new to the series. Like,
Yeah.
A lot of this builds upon what they established in Arena and Daggerfall.
Yeah.
But seeing it realized in 3D was significant, not just for me as a kid, but for the game industry. Like, I remember this was a big deal for Bethesda because it was their first big open Elder Scrolls game in 3D. It was the first big Elder Scrolls game on console because it came to Xbox as well as PC.
Yeah.
Whoa.
Did you steal something?
There's the lockpick. Alright. I'm gonna try to remember how to open this lock. Nope.
Oh man, so and here it is. Here is the first time when they built the opening areas for these games that they were trying to hey, learn how to play your class with these little environmental things, and we aren't going to give you cues. We're just going to try and leave you tools in your environment, and this is how it starts. Wow.
And it's much more. I mean, the easy way to say it is fiddly, but the actual way to say it embodies the player a bit more in the world than the later games did. Because you see, to lockpick, I didn't just hit the button on the chest. I had to go into my inventory, pull the lockpick out, and then equip it.
Yeah. Which feels like it feels kind of Deus Ex-y, because we were playing Deus Ex and we were talking about how Warren Spector's approach for the game was to try and make you feel like you were performing the game character's action. So it makes sense that in role playing you would, you have to reach into your pocket and pull out the lockpick. Mm-hmm. And I guess you can't hold your weapon during that time, right?
No, I don't think so.
Which means that's kind of more you have to be holding your lockpick instead of holding your weapon. So we take the lockpicking of the later games for granted, but I guess in the real world, if you were trying to lockpick and there were guys running around you couldn't just duck into a menu to try and take care of that.
Right. Boy, I'm sorry if I'm trailing off here. I'm now remembering how this all worked, which is that there's this menu that pops up. It's mapped to right mouse click, which is sort of interesting, and you have to sort of drag and drop in a very tactile way everything onto your character here. I need to find... I guess I don't know any magic. I guess I just have this healing. Oh, wait, no. Sorry. I'm sure chat's just yelling at me. Here are my spells. So it's a whole separate menu over here.
Mitchell's comment is that Bethesda crafted the ambience of this open world game, and that made you feel more like you were inhabiting a game world than just exploring it, and that's why the sandbox model felt noteworthy. Right. I guess I can agree with that in the sense that obviously open world games were starting to happen by now, and certainly large scale environment games, even if they weren't quote unquote open world, have been sort of happening for a bit. Mm-hmm. But because you said, Vice City was out by this time, right?
This came out the same year as Vice City, yeah.
Yeah. Vice City would have been a game. I guess there's two very obviously both games were quote unquote immersive. They had ambience, they had a vibe, but they were very. I guess there is something, even though Bethesda open world games try to make you know that you're the big hero of the day. Mm-hmm. Metallica shout out. There's also a sense to which they try to make you feel like you're an ordinary person in this world becoming the hero of the day.
Yeah.
You have obviously you're prophesized somehow, but you're still they try to set you up that you're just kind of a Joe or a Jane.
Yeah, I mean it's a trope now, right? In the Elder Scrolls games, you, as far as I know, always start as a prisoner, You're always a prisoner of low birth and high destiny, you know, and it's always up to the player to just like sort of set their own story about, you know, why you were imprisoned or how you came to do what you do, but you always start out as a prisoner.
But I guess that like is a good place to start from for an open world design, because it lets you make, you know, moments like that first lockpicking thing where and then the open world stuff branches out from that, in that you try to build environments around the player where that ordinary Jonas, it doesn't feel like, hey, it's your mission now to go open this chest because you need to get this equipment out of it.
Right.
It's the world is doing its best to pretend like you're not there, while also trying to say, come hither, come here, my lord. And sorry, Evo, I had to throw the Ebony reference in there for some reason, which was also very 2002 to 2008. It's Ebony. I guess maybe like Ebony ads came later. Those weird bad Ebony ads.
Brian, can I share with you one of my favorite things about this 15-year-old game?
Of course.
Maybe we can't. There it is. See that giant bug?
What giant bug?
Oh my god. This giant bug.
Oh, that giant bug. Oh my
Yeah.
god. Oh my god.
You know what that is?
It's a flea, isn't it?
No, it's a Silt Strider. It's like a cab. You take a cab downtown, take a Silt Strider to the next town over. No? I thought this was the coolest thing when I was a kid. I was like, wow, you can ride a bug. That's awesome.
See, what my coolest thing for open world transport stuff was in World of Warcraft, which came out like only a couple years after this, which is pretty amazing.
Mm-hmm.
Like even in the early days of World of Warcraft, the airships and boats were amazing, because the way they worked was obviously, you know, you would go somewhere specifically in the city, and you would, if you wanted to get to the other continent, you had to get to this place in the city, get on a boat, wait on the boat. You had to wait on the boat or wait for the boat. You had to wait for the boat or the airship because they came on a schedule.
So
it wasn't
real.
on demand. It was like public transportation, and then you would have to stand on it and watch it fly, and then you'd fly over the zone. And I don't know why, that just felt magical at the time. Obviously, that's not very Morrowind, but just to compare, like what my first like, oh my god, open world transportation was. That was pretty, like, old days of World of Warcraft. Like, that was a big deal. Getting a mount was a big deal. Then when flying mounts were introduced, getting a flying mount was a big deal. Like,
yeah, if it was even more realistic, like they would never come on time, they'd always be 5 minutes early or 5 minutes late.
Yeah.
That's the next generation of MMO design, is making
unreliable public transportation.
Yeah. Okay, we're at a big moment now. I remembered how to jump.
Where did I put that?
Rhetoric wants you to go get the boots. You should go get the boots.
Okay, so yeah, this is gonna be fun, Rhetoric, because Bryant doesn't know what we're talking about when we say the boots.
You will address me with respect.
I bet he also doesn't know about the spell. So Bryant,
I know nothing about this game. Like I said, my only experience was my German friend going, "Do you play Morrowind?"
Well,
yeah, I'm not affecting a German accent for once, because it's not fair. I can do a movie German accent. I can't do my friend Jan's German accent.
Mm-hmm.
Because Jan had a very lovely voice. He's probably still alive, as far as I know.
15 years later, you're gonna make good on Jan's question. You're gonna play Morrowind, if only by proxy. I need you to do me a favor. Keep your eyes peeled to the sky, because we are now taking ourselves a journey from the port town of Sedonin to the town of Balmora, where we're gonna meet our Imperial contact and make a delivery.
I still love this walk cycle. It's the best.
It's a really good walk.
It's just like, what's up? What's up?
Coming to steal your girl.
On my way. It's very on my way to steal your girl.
It's been about 14 years since I've played this game, so I hope I hope I'm on the right path. I might be on the wrong path.
Rhetoric, tell us if we're on the wrong path. And I'm watching the sky, but I'm also glancing over to the chat, so if I miss it.
This looks relatively familiar. Let's just pick up the pace. There we go.
I hope someone out there has written about what it's like to revisit old familiar worlds. Okay.
Hey, what's up, guy? You just fell out of the sky. All right.
Fell out of the sky, right? Yeah. That sort of happened in Skyrim. It tended to happen in what would happen in Skyrim was that would sort of be like a body would fall down a mountain in Skyrim. I don't remember any bodies falling just right out of the sky, but that falling out of the sky is pretty great. That's pretty and you're meant to see that, right?
Yeah, absolutely. So this is
like that isn't them just dropping a body in the road and hoping the player doesn't notice before they get it. They were like, hey player, someone just fell out of the sky. You're in a fantasy world.
Yeah, so I think, and like I don't want to make too big of a deal out of this because it's just like a funny little thing, but I do think it's important from a game design point of view because this was the first Elder Scrolls game that I really played. But I played a bit of Daggerfall and a bit of Arena, and from my understanding, like those games were heavily procedurally generated, so that there was handcrafted content in there for sure. I'm sorry, I said content, but there were handcrafted stories and events that would happen. But for the most part, it was all just random generation. And this game was not. This entire island is hand built. It's all handcrafted, and that means that these little scripted events are handcrafted as well. And there's a strong. The hand of the author is much stronger in Morrowind than it seems in Daggerfall or Arena, and that was a big deal, I think.
Mm-hmm.
This event is great.
Rusty wants to remind you to save often.
Right. Good point. Thanks. There we go. All right. So let's see what this guy was carrying. Oh God, I remember this. That's not even the right. That's not even. There we go. Let's just take it all.
Yeah.
What do you think? Okay. So there's a button on there that says "Dispose of Corpse." What do you think that does?
Oh my God! There's what?
I don't know what this button does. It's been a long time.
Do it. Just click it.
All right. Oh. Where did? Oh.
You knew what that did, didn't
no,
you?
I didn't. Actually, I totally forgot. I thought maybe he would pick it up and I could hide it somewhere.
I absolutely thought that was what would happen.
What do you think? Did I eat it? Where?
That wasn't like a clear cannibal thing.
I guess it's kind of speciesist to assume that the beast races would eat a corpse. That's kind of messed up.
That is really species. Yeah, that's xenophobic.
All right, let's.
I think it's just a way that they were like, "Hey, is this body taking up too much of your game's of your memory? Like, clear it out." That was probably a concern back then. Like, there probably wasn't a way to just automatic. I assume there must be a way to just automatically dispose.
Coming to steal your girl.
On my way. This is very on my way to steal your girl.
Hey. Oh, whoop! That's the wrong button.
That's Steam.
Yep. Yep. It's hard to do that. I guess we're just walking in this view. So now I'm feeling much better about our chances.
I don't know why this is really funny. And this is for the record, this was a thing that they wanted you to do. They wanted you to be a lizard man, dress up in this weird robe, and go out with a sword.
Yeah. This is why Morrowind was so striking in 2002, and why it captured the memory of 12-year-old me or whatever, and everyone else. Look at all these bright colors and weird things. Like I'm a crazy bright lizard with a funny hat and a super vibrant robe, fighting a little sandworm leech thing.
Ugh, yeah, that is God, just. Oh my God! I just can't believe an Elder Scrolls game would look like that past Oblivion. Once they started hiring Patrick Stewart to show up for these things, it's almost like the Bethesda. That was when Bethesda had to go to the world. No, we are a big company now. And
there's a really charming. If you launch Daggerfall, there's a cinematic at the beginning that plays, and it's a live action cinematic. So there's two there's two dudes acting, and it's just really charming.
I'll watch it after the stream. I'm gonna watch it. It's just
Okay, now I'm lost. I don't think I have a map. Oh, here's the sign. All right, there we go.
It's a short. Alex, before the stream, don't worry. It's a short walk to the first village. We're gonna try and do this cold open into the first village. And now, Alex, I'm lost.
In my memory, it's really easy to get to Balmora, but now I don't even know where it is. I tell you what,
I do love how Elder Scrolls games still try to do their best to let you get lost.
Absolutely.
It sucks. On the one hand, the only other open world game, and we've said it so many freaking times this year, the only other open world game that's really done a good job of keeping up that tradition of you're in a big space and if you wander off the path you'll get lost is truly Zelda. Mm-hmm. Because if you're trying to get to a tower before you've cleared a tower in a space, if you're wandering around quest markers, things that are very good for game design and helping players out have sort of shin kicked the ability for players to just get lost. Mm-hmm. But obviously you can just turn those off. My personal preference is to turn off to turn off like GPS, like just put the marker on my map and let me vaguely head that way. Is kind of my personal philosophy.
Right.
Because GPS, hey, take this road right now, turn right, is not the most desirable way to navigate open worlds, in my opinion.
No, I'll tell you what. The best way to get across any open world, I think we can both agree, is to fly.
Rusty's pointing out that Balmora is past the Stiltstrider.
Oh, really? Well, maybe we went the wrong direction. Do we have a map? Let's find out. Menu.
It says the wrong way is the right way in this game as well.
I mean, I agree. I fully agree that like most of the time I don't even care. But I do.
Yeah.
I have very fond memories of Balmora, and it has an interesting layout that I'd like to show. Here's the map. Let's have a look.
Can you zoom out?
Oh, great. They didn't mark anything on our map. Of course they wouldn't. Why would they?
Yeah.
All right.
Why would they?
Well, you know what, Brian? I think the fastest way to figure out and get a lay of the land would be to get up high. What do you think?
That's what Breath of the Wild does.
Yeah.
I mean, that's how Breath of the Wild does it. Like Alex, you're still playing Breath of the Wild, right? I'm still playing Breath of the Wild.
Absolutely. Now, I don't know if you could see this on your end, but when that poor fellow fell from the sky, we grabbed everything off him, including some scrolls he was experimenting with. So why don't we go ahead and see how those work? Are you ready?
Yeah, I'm ready.
You're gonna have to remember how.
I know about scrolls. The scrolls show up in all other games, right?
There we go.
What? Did you break the game?
No, he was working on a super jump spell, so he could get
right,
around.
but it froze.
Oh, I mean, it might be broken. This is usually a part in the game where it gets really choppy because you're moving over the island so fast. It might be broken. I don't know.
You broke. Is it frozen at your end?
Maybe just a little bit. So this is a really good example of the.
I hope you're all seeing my facepalm.
The game developer putting in something that like straight up breaks the game. Even if like I've never seen it freeze like this before, but even when it's running well, it's like the whole game just goes to hell. Everything starts chopping, and then when you land, you do not survive. We're gonna go.
Are you serious? You just did this so that you could die?
Well, yeah. I mean, we might have lived if we landed in some water. Maybe, I'm not sure. So let's go ahead.
I'm sorry, everyone.
It's not my fault.
I've never, I know. I mean, like we've had some funny crashes happen here on the stream, but I've never seen anyone deliberately break it like Alex has.
It's not my fault. They put it in the game. I didn't.
I like how that Bethesda logo barely changed over the years following this game's release. I guess the soft forks got moved around.
Yeah, I mean, I occasionally mess that up. I think Bethesda Softworks is the parent company of Bethesda Game Studios, which now develops.
Oh my god, that brief loading screen with like the skeletons was totally like doot skeleton, like that Twitter skeleton thing.
Yeah,
like
it's funny. We were talking before the stream about how I kind of miss those loading screens because they're so fast now. And you had a good point. Like in a way. Like sort of that loading experience is part of the authentic historical gameplay experience, and we're losing that.
Yeah, I've heard it's kind of one of those things where I care less, but I know historians care about that.
Yeah.
Historians do care about preserving those moments, and which I'm thankful for game history to remind me that like what I understand about history in general is a retelling. And as best as I've been taught by my instructors, it is truly difficult to recreate things as they were, and game history has given me a living, breathing example of that. Because I'll boot up. I own some old games, and like I'll boot up and go, "This did not play this way on my old like CRT monitor back in the day."
Absolutely.
I would have still had CRTs around this. Yeah, I had CRTs for a while actually.
Yeah. I mean, I was using a CRT in 2002, I think. I'm not sure if that was cutting edge or not. I was also pretty poor.
Yeah.
But
all right, so we're heading back to the village that we're trying to get to?
Yeah, I think this is
on our way to steal someone's girl?
Yeah. But I noticed that Stiltstrider would take me, I think, to Balmora. So let's just see if we can shortcut and take public transit. Because we're eco-conscious. We don't want to mess up the roads if we don't have to.
You're eco-conscious. You're walking through a jungle.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, look at me. I'm a lizard man.
Okay, so
I take that back. That was kind of specious. I don't know why lizard men would be any more eco-conscious than anybody else. Maybe I'm not eco-conscious. Maybe I'm very.
Alex, what we're learning about today is Alex is very xenophobic for some reason.
I'm not xenophobic. I love other species, but maybe I love them too much.
I don't know, because it's not racism because they aren't human. They aren't human races. They're different species. It's weird.
Sure.
I've actually had some very thoughtful conversations with people about this, about fantasy racism and how you depict, how you map real world prejudices onto fictional people. Like, it's kind of like how someone joked that like it's easier to be blue in a video game than it is to be like a person of color.
To be brown, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, it's to be brown, and I think that might have been actually a comics reference to that I'm thinking of in that case. But
Cool.
but like then like like The Witcher, like dwarf racism against dwarves and elves, and some people just go like, wait, doesn't like you can only be a dwarf or an elf in real life if you use prosthetics. Well, I guess obviously there is dwarfism. I shouldn't just dismiss that. But like you will not be among the species of dwarves who live under the mountain, and allegiance to the king. That's actually not the thread of questioning I wanted to move on to. The thread of questioning I wanted to move on to was so Alex, I want to ask at this point in your life, how important was the world of the Elder Scrolls to you? And is it that important today, and what is special about it?
It was important enough that when I was playing this game 15 years ago, I didn't notice that you can see through the character's neck when you're in third-person view. Because now I can't unsee it.
I have to lean into the camera here to see it, but
It's
yeah,
pretty
wow.
small. You can absolutely see.
And by
through.
world, I mean like the backstory. I don't like the word lore a lot. I hate the word lore, unless you're referring to the Star Trek: The Next Generation character played by Brent Spiner.
Sure.
But
That's a good
like
jump.
the arrangement of characters, the histories, the facts. How important were these things to you as a 2002 nerd?
Well, I think Bethesda Game Studios capitalizes very well on the illusion of a background of a greater story, right?
Yeah.
And this ties into what you were just saying about what's up, guys? Oops, it's always the wrong button.
Immersion Games, it's time to find drunk old drunk you know who. But yeah, if you can still continue.
So I think the background stories that sort of wallpaper these games and their very heroic main quests are often the most exciting and interesting part of them. And that feeds back into what you're talking about sort of how games depict race and tensions between different races. Like that is a strong theme throughout all these games, including this game. And that is always way more interesting than the main stuff. And that kind of living, breathing world, that illusion of it, is what really made this game stand out in 2002.
Right. So when now that Elder Scrolls Online is revisiting Morrowind, is it the kind of thing that makes you want to come back to like do you think the location here and the characters and the factions of this space are so important you'd want to play them again?
Yeah, I don't know. Like that's a deeper question about how you design and market a game. So
right.
They're adding Morrowind as a significant expansion to that MMO, I think in June, and
yeah.
It's very evocative of this game, which is in part because you can see it. Everything here has a very striking and unique aesthetic, right? Like all these buildings, all these creatures. Like later in the game, there's a bunch of like the trees are mostly mushrooms. There are crazy floating jellyfish things that are just in the air.
Yeah.
It's all very
Speak, traveler.
evocative, and so they use that in this new expansion to the Elder Scrolls Online to great effect. But the game itself is fundamentally different than this. Like, it's fundamentally an MMO insofar as you are going and getting quests, following quest lines, completing quests for rewards, and grinding rep or whatever. And that doesn't give, in my experience, like obviously I haven't played a ton of it. It doesn't give the same space for storytelling that this game does.
Yeah.
If I can help, I will.
Yeah.
But take too much time.
I am going to go to the chat real quick. Fantasy Star prefers this version to the console version, which I guess, it was like you said, it was significant that one of these big computer RPGs could be played on console. But even as recently, like when we were just talking with David O'Reilly last week about his game Everything, like there's still something for the fact that if you want a better performing version of this kind of game, playing it on the PC seems to be the way to go. Immersion Games sort of harkens back to what we were talking about with Warren Spector, with saying more video game developers need to be avid D&D or tabletop RPG players. I think that's interesting. I'm going to talk about that real quick because I'm playing D&D now. Alex is playing D&D. And what I'm noticing is that I'm playing D&D in a different way than I think D&D has been played before. Probably not that different, but like I think what's interesting about tabletop gaming is enjoying a nice renaissance right now. I credit Geek and Sundry with putting a video series out that got people into this, and it's ranging from tabletop role-playing to tabletop, just other kinds of tabletop games and the experiences that those games give. I think there's kind of the big choice, the big freedom of tabletop, and then like the simulation elements of it are the old school ways. I think if video game developers are going to play tabletop games and then try to translate that experience, I think it's worth noting that there's now a broader spread of that experience and why it's special for people than I think there was when these games were being developed by ye old tabletop nerds. Is my observation, is that if you're going to think of, well, we need to translate tabletop to digital, it's worth remembering that I think the people who are watching like the Geek and Sundry D&D shows right now and the Penny Arcade just launched a version of their D&D show, which I think is actually really funny.
They have multiple like teams running, don't they?
They're kind of at PAX, the main, Gabe and Tycho, Jerry and Mike go and grab a couple of their friends, and then they play with but now they call it the C Team, and it's being DM'd by Jerry himself, but it's with some of their friends like Pat Rothfuss and stuff, and Chris Straub, who are also generally there at the main shows, so they call it the C Team, but I think it's more like they call it the C Team, but it's also like this is probably who's going to become the face of the way they play D&D now, because that's what they stream on Twitch. I went to one show back when I was starting on my career as a young writer about games, and I thought it was. I think the D&D as theatrical entertainment is now is growing to be a part of it. That and the fun and the comedy of it. I hope if game developers are going to be tabletop players playing tabletop into dev, I hope they remember that that's part of it. Because which I guess now that you can stream any game on Twitch, that's what it really is. Immersion wants to disclose that they write for Geek and Sundry. That's sweet. Jim, I wrote for Geek and Sundry for a little bit too when I was a freelancer. Shout out to Rob Manuel, the great editor over there. Did you crash the game again?
Definitely not. Nope, everything's fine.
Okay, you didn't crash the game. I'm gonna keep talking about the chat then. Rusty Broomhandle wants to say that for world building, it has a lot in common with colonization of North America, down to the inclusion of plantation owning slave owners. Man, I don't know. Alex, do you agree with that sentiment? Does it feel like a colonized, if you go to the East Coast and you go to those colonial recreation places at all?
Yeah, like I said earlier, you can certainly see themes of colonization, of sort of subjugating native people running through these games. It's notable that the designers put that in there and in my experience, that they don't express too much of a strong push either way. Like, obviously, I have super strong feelings about that, and that's why typically I will side against the Imperials when playing these games. But it is at least sort of laudable that they do not shy away from populating these worlds with characters that will be very passionate about freedom, or about whatever it is that colonial people are passionate about, colonizers rather, manifest destiny. Yes, there are definitely those themes in these games. Those are always interesting. I always wish they would do more with them. I wish they were more prominent in the main storylines, but they rarely are. In Skyrim especially, Skyrim sort of touches on it in a really interesting way, but just at the end of it, because the game is predicated around player empowerment, it doesn't really. I don't know, it never gave me a very satisfactory feeling. Maybe in part because those kind of questions can't be solved satisfactorily as long as there are two opposing sides. But I don't know. I'm sort of just half thinking, well, I try not to crash this game. Here we go. Oh, wrong button.
Why did the game crash before? Actually, I'm out of curiosity.
It's just 15 years old.
It's 15 years old. Fair enough.
I'm not sure. Probably my computer's not great. Or
Yeah.
something.
Mitch wants to say that the themes could benefit from the concept of narrative Legos, not negative Legos. That's a different thing. Narrative Legos that Ken Levine talked about in his 2014 GDC talk. I actually still need to watch that talk. I understand that it's required. If you want to work with Ken, it's required viewing now.
Oh well. I guess we should.
If Ken wants to pop in and tell me I'm wrong, first off, I'll say hi. Second off, I'll say that's the only thing I know about the narrative Legos talk. I think I'll say what's interesting about the Imperials versus Locals narrative, which I encountered in Skyrim, is that it's interesting how Bethesda has gone to such lengths to try and make sure players would feel comfortable siding with either faction, that they, like you've said, they've gone hard to not take a stance, as opposed to, I suspect you and I would take the similar stance about why we would pick Resistance. But in Skyrim, I actually did not. On the one hand, they force this dichotomy so hard into their game that it's very disconnected from the real. Like, you can't just sort of take to say, I am a freedom-loving person, ergo I will support the freedom fighters.
Right.
You definitely can't take that in Skyrim, because the Nordic group, the Nordic rebels, are horrifying speciesists, I guess you can say. Or they seem to be horrifying racists too, because they don't seem to cotton for other human groups as well. I could be. I mean, again, correct me if I'm wrong.
No, I mean, I definitely, I'd hope to, and we'll stream this game again, so I'd hope to dig more into like the influence its design has had, and why it's not there. But certainly, like in Skyrim, especially, and the other games as well, they fall back on the both sides are dirty thing, which I think it is in part through design to give players some justification and some foothold.
This better be important.
Regardless of which side they decide to side with. But like in real life, such conflicts are rarely so equitably terrible. There's usually somebody who is.
What's this then?
It is usually not so pat. In Skyrim, the freedom fighters are sort of horrible and have done horrible things, but their cause is just, and then like the colonizers are kind of stamping down and authoritarian, but they're doing good things too, and it's just very.
It's kind of it's weird, because like the closest comparison that I feel like the closest comparison that you could talk, I feel like it's Life of Brian, isn't it? Like, it's, what have the Romans ever done for us? Plumbing, and the wine, and civic society. Yes, but besides the plumbing, the wine, the civic society, what have the Romans ever done for us? Which is, Monty Python knew how to take that and turn it into a joke. And I wonder if it was referencing, like, I don't know if when Life of Brian came out, if it was referencing anything going on in British politics at the time. But what I liked about that Monty Python joke was that it led more into like the different factions of the rebels, and just the jokes about the different names they had, and the way they like would conflict about their, like, they hated the other person so much, but they almost hated each other more because they felt like, well, at least they're like consistently bad. Like there was kind of a perspective, even as Monty Python waded through the waters of the Romans are terrible, and this group of people thinks the Romans are terrible because the Romans are doing terrible things to them. It sort of like came at it with a perspective for that joke. It wasn't just sort of both sides are bad. It was everyone is an idiot, and I don't know how you take a stance on things like that, and maybe like obviously we have to play through those segments of the game to get for me to understand anything about that. But I will just say when I witnessed it in Skyrim, the both sides are baddiness of it sort of made me just go to the Imperials and say, look, like let's just team up. Like, you've got the guy from Battlestar Galactica here. Y'all seem like both terrible people, so I'll just hang out with you guys because you're kind of cool. And it, I don't feel like they owe anything to reality to, try and, I mean, like, are you fighting this person?
Nope, keep going. Go ahead.
I don't necessarily think you're fighting this person.
I was trying to join the Thieves Guild by stealing the diamond in front of her, but I couldn't steal it, so I thought maybe I would close her eyes a different way, and it That didn't work out.
Why, you little thief! Come back!
This is like when we played Deus Ex and you were just like, shh, shh.
What was that?
Let's go to the chat for their thoughts on this, because I'm actually gonna it's so hard to talk about that broad subject that like we do need to let other people have their say here.
Yeah.
My feeling is the matter-of-factness of these themes are potentially quite realistic, and that people in the setting do not have the benefit of the hindsight just how things are to them. Jamersion Games says all that changes once you meet the Dunmer here. You can become your own faction. Rusty Broomhandle says it's possible to free all the slaves on the island, but it's a monstrous task, and there's no in-game reward for it. The task is its own reward.
That's true, yeah.
Ooh, I like that mechanic. I really do. I wish. I'm trying to remember if Assassin's Creed Black Flag had a similar mindset. I don't think it did, because I think freeing slaves in that game was actually fed into a larger system.
Yeah, no, that was the game where in a really, and a writer could put this very eloquently. Like basically,
Evan Narcisse, I think it was at the time, because he's at IO9 now.
Yeah, I don't want to summarize him directly, but basically the idea was that like you had this historical look at slavery, but the slaves were themselves treated as another kind of currency. They were once again commodified. Like the more you would free, the more rewards you would get, and so once again, people were being turned into like something to be acquired,
traded. Yeah, but at the same time, what I loved about Evan's piece was that that game freeing slaves, in the Caribbean was still like, holy crow, like that was like a powerful, like the quests themselves, the missions, the sneaking around, like that was still. It was something. And then there's like Ubisoft's credit on that game, while they floundered with, it was almost weird because it was almost like they were trying to use the freed slaves as a progress tracker, like to say, okay, we're going to check how much you've done by giving you a rough number to scale yourselves along here. And then it's like someone along the way said, oh, well, we'll give you some rewards as well as tracking your progress. And that was the tipping point where they but I almost feel like if in a game like Assassin's Creed, where you were trying to help out the local slave population, if it was sort of like an impossible task to do one by one, but it was only possible to do through like broad sweeping gestures, that's a freaking great mechanic. Like, to acknowledge that just the act of nobly charging in and freeing individual slaves does not end the act of slavery. It just gets like, it's not like, it doesn't fix the tensions, the problems, the dehumanity. So I'm glad that Morrowind has you can free everyone, but you get no reward for it. You can free them as you come across them, but you get no reward. That's I like that mechanic, because it lets the player participate in a moral value, as people in chat are pointing out. It lets them participate in a moral act with no tangible reward, and let them decide how they feel about it morally or practically or anything else. Like maybe they're freeing a slave for some other reason.
Yeah.
I should let you get a word in edgewise, but
well, I mean, these sort of old game streams are meant to be sort of laid back and let the conversation just go where it is. I did want to like briefly, as we begin to sort of wind this up, like I wanted to highlight some of the development story behind this game, because I think it's an interesting sort of turning point in Bethesda's history as a game developer, right?
Yeah.
Everyone knows them now for games like these, games like Skyrim, but there was a time when they were making like Terminator games. They were also really interesting, but nobody, they were not a big deal. And if you look back at, there was a behind the scenes when Morrowind turned 10. There's a little story published on their company blog. It's like pretty fluffy. There's not a lot there, but there's a little bit there about how this game had been in conception since Daggerfall was released in the 90s, I believe. And then they shelved it for a little bit to do some sort of side games called like Redguard and Battlespire, and then they came back to it because it sounds like because people really wanted one of these mainline games and not these side stories. They wanted the big open world, and but at that point 3D games had hit. They were huge. That was the standard at this point. So they had to like get a new engine. That was Gamebryo. They had to staff up in a huge way, according to this post, and that I think is like that lays the foundation for what Bethesda Game Studios is today. because now they're a sizable studio with a lot of old hands, some of which have been on the team since Morrowind and before that. And this is sort of where it all started. This idea of building these big 3D, very complex but very intricate and interesting play spaces.
Checking back on the chat.
Yeah.
Jamersion Games points out that Fallout 4 tried to do this with the Railroad. Even though I played that game recently, in the last couple years, I'm blanking on how well. Oh wait, no. The weird thing about the Railroad was that it was robots, and it was AI. And we don't have time. It's 10 minutes left. I don't have time to talk about Fallout 4, sadly. Ragged Scribe says, divorcing game rewards from virtuous action is the only way to make a player feel actually virtuous. Only maybe a strong word, but I absolutely agree with that sentiment. Like, I love it when games do that, when the freedom means the freedom to do good, but to do good, like, doing good is hard. I would say it's like a surprisingly meaningful way to do that, because obviously, like, if you play a Paragon in Mass Effect game, you feel good. Like, everything about the game tells you you're good. You have, like, but you also get points that you can contribute to really good your way out of hard situations.
That's right.
Which is funny, because I think a large amount of the time, like, I can think of some significant moments where in Mass Effect I'd power games so much that I could sort of make whatever choice I wanted at any given point. And I remember explicitly going through one choice and realizing, wow, I can solve this problem any way I want, but the result of solving either problem... Are you putting this man to sleep?
Yeah, I'm just putting him to sleep.
Okay. Like, I could make whatever choice I wanted, but the result was going to be the same for two of the Paragon Renegade choices, which I thought was like, man, what is the meaning here? Then what mean? There was meaning in that. There was meaning in the moment that I was describing, but again, running out of time to talk about that. Mitchell would not be surprised if such elements from the tabletop tree, this is referring to a longer comment they had, stemmed from the game's protracted development cycle that you mentioned.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I need to find out how we not die here.
This was probably the last Bethesda open world game, as Rusty Broomhandle says, that had a finite amount of wildlife. So in theory, you could just kill everything before it respawn, and I guess it wouldn't respawn.
That may be true. I definitely never pushed the limits in that sense. I will say, like, the systems in this game are an outgrowth of Daggerfall, which was even more fiddly. And they have some really interesting things that we're not going to get into today. But, like, you can see that when I'm casting spells, sometimes they fail. Like spells have a failure rate, and that I think went away. It's certainly not in Skyrim.
Hardly a match for me.
You died.
So
did the old drunk beat you to death?
So yeah, he's an important main quest NPC. Another interesting about this game that I remember is that it was widely hyped as a game where you could kill anybody, which is like kind of appealing to kids who just want to mess with things and break systems. But it's an interesting choice from a design perspective as well, because you could conceivably just murder this guy and murder a bunch of other people and never just totally close yourself off to hundreds of quests, and that was totally novel in 2002. That was not done.
That actually happens less often nowadays, doesn't it? Like,
I've sort of grown past the point where I really push the limits like that, but I do think most of Bethesda's the Elder Scrolls games do still have a lot of that, where you can just kind of cry havoc and let loose, and the game will just adapt.
I think it's interesting that actually, because characters are getting removed, I feel like this goes back to what we were talking about with the Conan guys, about how when Conan, like, obviously you had RPGs and the RPGs went online, and then online RPGs have now been replaced sort of with online survival games, but those are also role-playing games in that you are role-playing the survival, like, trying to be as, like, in the scene, keeping yourself alive as you can. So which sort of makes you that avatar, that play state, that mindset that are sort of more transferred to you than if you were in these very, quest node NPCs kind of games. So I think what's interesting is that the dream of this, being able to, like, cut off a main quest just by killing someone just because you didn't like them, has been has evolved into, I think, even though you might, like, any given developer may not agree with me that they drew influence from Morrowind or whatever, but in trying to figure out how to make immersive play, I think the open world survival designers of today's Steam early access stuff have sort of replaced cut yourself off from the main quest in the name of freedom with deal with other players, and your interactions with them and the tensions with them will replace your interactions with these NPCs.
Speak, traveler.
Yeah, I think you're probably right.
Mitch says, Caius's appearance and belongings always seems eclectic to me, ripped but somewhat elderly, addicted to drugs but reads a lot about politics. Mitch, you have not hung out on a college campus, have you? No, what's funny is I think you're in college, so that was rude of me to say. I'm just saying, it sounds like people oh god, I went to a hippie college.
Yeah,
and
I don't
that's
know
all that's scant.
Yeah, I don't know how many drug-addicted, super ripped old war heroes were teaching
Make it quick,
in
I got
hippie
it.
college. I do think that's an interesting point. Basically, like, what he's getting at is I almost said environmental storytelling, like maybe that's not the right word, but the way that characters like backstory is fleshed out without any like
Speak,
overt
traveler.
narrative. Like he
Yeah.
just says hello, and then like once you tell him your secret, he accepts you as a new recruit into the
Say what you
Blades, and
want.
he starts
Say
giving you
what you
orders.
want.
But you can see when you look around his room that I've now since left, like there's drug paraphernalia, there's bits and pieces of stuff lying around. It's kind of a mess. Looks like somebody has been getting up to some dirt, but also like getting into some dirt, if you know what I mean. And that's an interesting, like, just a bit of design. I don't know.
Yeah.
That certainly stood out to me when I first played it 15
Yeah.
years ago.
Real quick, I love the look of this game, and that I love the fog effect I'm looking at right now, and I
Yeah.
love, like, the architecture's great. I almost was saying earlier, like, this could be an aesthetic. This is, like,
It
maybe
is.
you would need up
Morrowind.
character models, but you could still, like, you could go for this lower poly, lower texture look, and for a game today. And as long as I think you weren't stuck in that, like, something our friend and colleague Simon Carlos was saying earlier, as long as it's not like a 2-hour game, I think you could be successful with, like, you don't need your game to look as beautiful as Skyrim 4K.
Well, I mean, yeah, even if it's, I think the length doesn't really factor into it so much. I do think this has a very, as I said earlier, like Morrowind's aesthetic is very striking. It's basically unique. I would say, like, I've seen similar things in like old DBZ episodes in the way that like they have very like you can see like the window design and stuff, and like in Zelda you'll see sort of some similar kind of like interesting kind of out there like architecture and such, but not a lot. This game is very unique and iconic, and
Yeah.
I think that's worth highlighting, especially in light of the other games in this series, which are, you know, Skyrim, Oblivion, Arena, Daggerfall. They all kind of have a very similar aesthetic. They're all very like swords and sorcery. You know, Skyrim is very much a wintry northern set game, but
Yeah.
you know, other than that, like those games don't stand out the way Morrowind does.
I couldn't think of a building in Skyrim that reminds me that, like, I wouldn't also find in The Witcher, for instance. The only thing in Skyrim that Skyrim, as far as architecture went, I can think of one early shrine that you visit. We visited when we played the game with Brett DeVille a while back. And then the underground areas where, like, the dwarven creations are still walking around or whatever. I love the look of those places, but
Yeah, and I gotta say,
every village-wise, I mean, it's fine for the game and what it is. It's not the thin wire through the immersion, but it's not this.
yeah, look at this crazy bug dog up ahead of us. I don't know what that is, but
Yeah.
yeah. So like the dwarven stuff too in these games. You know, I never played far enough in Arena or Daggerfall or the spin-offs to see how or when that stuff gets introduced. To me, the first time that stuff appeared was in this game. Like shortly after you leave the first, like there's a dwarven ruin somewhere around here. I forget how to get to it, and it's just
Yeah.
sitting on a hill. And if you're just out there exploring, you know, the player can just stumble across that and just marvel for minutes, just wandering around looking at it. And that
Yeah.
that was more rare 15 years ago. I'm not saying like no one else did it, but it was much less common than it is today.
Yeah. Well, sadly, our hour is coming to an end.
You know what that means. We're going for another ride.
We're going for another. All right, let's do it.
Yeah.
They roll! Oh my god.
Oh boy, where'd the ground go? Oh dear.
Where'd you go?
Oh, I don't know.
Oh, no.
Oh, there's a. Oh.
Wait, is that where it crashed? Does it crash right before you hit the
It
ground?
might just break. This might just.
This is odd. See, this is oddly immersive right now in that, like, surely if you flung yourself into the air and then fell to a fire death, the last thing you would fully conceive is the moment you would hit the ground. And with that morbid note,
this is how I live my life. This is aspirational.
Thank you, everyone, for joining us today. Thank you to all our great people in the chat, great developers, great thinkers about games. We love having you here. We love chatting about Morrowind with you. It looks like Morrowind, like, I'm looking at the number of people who watch today, number of chat. It seems like you all want to watch us play more Morrowind. So that is absolutely going to happen.
Yeah.
We're doing a thing on our Twitch channel now where Alex and I just sit down for some old games.
Old millennials and young millennials. This is how
old millennials and young millennials. That'll be the name of the series. It's not going to be a series. Next week we are. You've got the Sail Away devs on, right? That's what you're aiming to do.
Yeah, I mean, we should never promise anything because especially the interviews.
Yeah.
People have lives.
We're a little booked up next week, so I don't know if we're back next week with Morrowind, but we will be back to play more Morrowind. Like we like this journey is as beautiful for us as it is for you. So we're gonna keep making it happen.
That's right.
So thank you, Alex, for showing me Morrowind. I have now fulfilled my promise to Jan.
That's right.
There wasn't a promise.
Thank you so much for coming back on this journey to my childhood. It's been great.
Yeah, exploring Alex's childhood. All right, everyone. Bye.
Bye.
Thanks to stand by.